world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Friday, the 10th of April, year of our Lord 2026. Well, today we're going to take a look at the tolls. How do they work? What are the implications that they're going to work? What is it going to do to the world's oil supply if it holds together? Is it going to be reparations? Is that the way we should look at this? It is a tremendous amount of money for Iran compared to their gross domestic product. But of course, the ceasefire is already ceasing, except that it never was honored by Israel. They never honor their treaties or agreements. And so now we've got Donald Trump, who complained about it at the very beginning. Now he's making excuses for Israel. And we got Melania making excuses for one of the ultimate causes of this war, the Epstein connection between her. We'll take a look at what she has to say and the truth about what is there. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Well, it is interesting to see how this is all developing. And I want to talk about Melania first, because, look, we all understand that a major factor in all of this was to cover up what happened with Epstein. Trump has been paid. He's been blackmailed. You name it. We look at this. And so out of the clear blue sky, Melania has this press conference. And she goes live and tells people this.
I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I was not a participant.
Sure, right.
Was never on Epstein's plane and never visited his private island.
Do you believe that? Do you find that to be credible? Well, perhaps one of the things that has caused her to go public is the fact there's an email, at least one, maybe more, but at least one that looked like there was quite a relationship between her and Ghislaine Maxwell. Dear G. So she's pushing back on the claims that she was linked to the sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. And you know what I find interesting about this, and I've mentioned this before, it was Michael Wolff who had long extended interviews with Jeffrey Epstein. And he said that Jeffrey Epstein told him that he had introduced Melania to Donald Trump, that he was the one who brought them together. And when other people repeated that claim, they came after those other people. And I thought it was very interesting that they didn't go after Michael Wolff. And I questioned why that was. If you're going to go after publications that repeat what a guy who had long, extensive interviews with him said, and a journalist who you would expect would have recordings of these interviews. So why didn't they go after him? Why did they go after other people? Was it because they believed that he had recordings? Is it because he didn't play the recordings or make them public that maybe they came to the conclusion, or maybe they had some inside information that maybe he didn't record that aspect of it. Maybe he doesn't have a recording of that. Maybe it's just his word against theirs. Because for the longest time, they were threatening people with billion-dollar lawsuits if they repeated what Michael Wolff said, but they didn't threaten Michael Wolff. After many months of that, they filed a lawsuit against Michael Wolff, and he promptly countersued against them. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes to trial if he's got the recording. Typically, journalists will always do that. I remember when we were at InfoWars and Megyn Kelly came, and we knew she was trying to set all of us up, particularly Alex, but she wanted to find anything she could on anybody else that she interviewed. So she wanted to interview all the people who were on air. And Du was supposed to record it, but he didn't record it. Not only did he not record my interview, but he didn't record Alex's interview. And they were very concerned. And as she started going public and attacking Alex right away afterwards. Alex pretended that he had the transcript. He was absolutely bluffing. He didn't have the transcript. He didn't have a recording of it. And, but he was basically threatening her. And so, people will do that. Maybe that's what Michael Wolff is doing. Maybe it was a bluff. Maybe he doesn't have the recording. Because even though that is standard practice, people screw up, just as we saw at InfoWars. So in addition to all of that, and it may be related to all of this Epstein stuff, there was a poll that came out. I don't know if it was before her interview or after, but it may be not her interview, but her speech, where she makes a statement, shocking people out of the clear blue sky. And so maybe it was in response to that they did a poll, but it couldn't have been, because it takes a while to do a poll. Anyway, a poll came out at about the same time. Maybe she knew about the poll results. The most unpopular first lady ever. More unpopular even than Hillary Clinton. Really surprising. What they do is they look at the number of people who like her, the number of people who dislike her, and they look to see whether there's more people who like than dislike, or more dislikes. If you have more dislikes, they say you're underwater. She's underwater by 12 points. When you looked at Nancy Reagan, she was the most popular. She was more than 50 points above water. And for whatever reason, kind of color in between the lines. But the other thing that is happening with Melania, of course, is the massive number of pictures that are out there. She claims they're all fake. They're not all fake, but they are at parties. I think this is one of the most telling pictures. This has been around for a very long time. This absolutely is not fake, the four of them. And she seems to be quite enamored of Jeffrey Epstein in this picture, doesn't she? And then there are others, like this one, a partying one, which apparently is real. I can't vouch for any of these now. In the day of AI, anybody can create something, and that's her defense. Well, they're all just fake. Or we were at a party or whatever. I don't know. I don't buy that excuse. Others like this. This is, I think it's Naomi Campbell, I think, a model. I believe this one is real. And then you have what really scares her, which is they said she appeared highly nervous during the speech and was shaking, largely looking down at her notes. She did not take any questions before she walked away from the podium. Now, this definitely is AI. This is Trump and Melania watching a scary movie. Oh, something crawls out of the screen toward them. It's Jeffrey Epstein. So her claim is that although she and the president had overlapping social circles with Epstein, they did not have a relationship, reports the Daily Mail. She also said she never associated with Epstein's criminal accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. And yet, one of the things that has brought this to the surface is this email, apparently, between her and Ghislaine Maxwell. So, again, she told the room that she first met Epstein in 2000, that she was unaware of anything untoward. He was not accused until years later, in 2005, about the time that Epstein and Trump broke up their friendship. And that's the thing that is hard to believe. When you look at how close Donald Trump was at the time that he met Melania, and, for another decade or so with that, it's pretty hard to believe anything that she and Donald say. These images and stories, she said, are completely false. I am not a witness or an unnamed witness in connection with any of Epstein's crimes. That's another aspect of this. Hillary Clinton had to testify in Congress, but evidently she does not want to, and is trying to tell everybody she doesn't need to be brought in to testify before Congress. As a matter of fact, that's one of the interesting things about this. The fact that she's directly contradicting the Trump administration and Cash Patel, who we all know perjured himself. And as somebody put up with a meme, they have FBI Director, September 2025, Cash Patel, says, quote, no credible information that Epstein trafficked victims to others. Now, we all know that's a lie, right? And as Senator Kennedy from Louisiana said, the Republican, he said, so you've got all these crimes, but you don't have any perpetrators, right? Now Melania is saying, now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. That is a direct contradiction of the lies of Cash Patel and Dan Bongino. So she said, I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Because there are other people, perpetrators, who have done this. And she said, I understand it's a lot of very wealthy, very powerful people. She said, just having your name in there does not mean that you're guilty, but they need to be looked at. They need to be investigated. She said, her spokesperson said, she spoke out now because enough is enough and the lies must stop. Well, we can all agree on that, can't we? Does anybody trust what the Trumps are saying? I certainly, personally don't. It is time for the public and the media to focus on her incredible achievements as First Lady. Seriously? As one person pointed out, she was a porn model. She was most likely a prostitute. She marries this older billionaire. What has she done in her life? What has she done as First Lady, as a matter of fact? Melania also addressed an email that she had sent to Maxwell that was published in January, saying that her response was to be polite, and it didn't indicate a close relationship. Buried in the trench of more than 3 million Epstein files is an email that was signed Love Melania that appears to be addressed to Maxwell. It begins, Dear G, how are you? Nice story about J.E., Jeffrey Epstein, in the New York Magazine. You look great on the picture. The New York Magazine had run the story, Jeffrey Epstein, International Money Man of Mystery. The article featured a full-page color illustration of Epstein grinning alongside Bill Clinton in front of his private jet, as the actors Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker board the aircraft. She said, I know you're very busy flying all over the world. How was Palm Beach? I cannot wait to go down. Give me a call when you're back in New York. Have a great time. Signed affectionately, Love Melania. Well, she said, these are lies that are linking me with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, don't believe that. Don't believe the birthday card that Donald Trump sent to him. You know, Trump is still suing Wall Street Journal for that, even after the actual card was released and shown that the Wall Street Journal was telling the truth and Trump was lying. It doesn't matter to him. You know, he lies about everything. I mean, he lies about these wars. Every day he lies about it. And so, you know, he has become accustomed to saying whatever he wants to say, whatever is in his interest, just like his comments about the Americans who were killed by ICE in Minnesota. So she's calling on Congress to now hold hearings for the victims. That call to action directly undercut ongoing messaging from her husband and the White House, renewing attention on a topic that was fading from public discourse amid the war with Iran. And by the way, I don't know, when we look at her documentary thing, again, the corruption that is involved in that, as I pointed out, you know, it was something like $45 million and just about that much again in terms of publicity and promotion. And when you look at the cost of doing a documentary, about 25 million of that went to her. Even if you strip out the advertising and marketing costs, and, you know, so they're into it about $75-80 million. If you strip out all the marketing and promotion costs, if you strip out what they paid to her, you're still left with about $15 to $20 million, which is way more than any documentary that I've ever heard of. Way more. I mean, typically they spend a well-funded documentary is maybe a tenth of that. And most of it went to her. I mean, the money that was sent to her alone, folks, it was nothing but money laundering from Jeffrey Epstein to the Trumps. He handed them a big check for $25 million and called it a payment for a documentary. Absolute corruption. And she's at the epicenter of all that as well. So again, she's now renewing attention to the topic that Trump went to war to avoid. I mean, that certainly is a big part of it. There was the wag the dog aspect of it, as well as the Netanyahu aspect of it. I guess you could say we wag the zog because it is the Zionist-occupied government that is taking us to war as well. Many people may see Israel as the tail of the dog, but they're actually the tail that wags the zog. Trump said his top lieutenants have sought to downplay, or Trump didn't say that, but he and his top lieutenants sought to downplay this, so she's now bringing it back. Trump was aware that his wife planned to make Thursday's statement, said one person to CNN, but he claimed that he didn't know anything about it. I don't know which one is worse when you look at this. Anyway, some White House officials were stunned by the timing of the remarks, which sparked rumors that the First Lady was trying to get out ahead of something. What would that be? Maybe she doesn't want to have to testify before Congress? Then there was a disagreement amongst those close to Melania as to whether or not to go through with the remarks, given that the story had died down. She's now reviving this and bringing it back to the headlines. But Tuesday's call for action, one of Melania's most significant public statements in her second term as First Lady, only drove more conversation about Epstein, generating calls from lawmakers and victims and advocates for more accountability, including from the Justice Department. Of course, Thomas Massie said as soon as Pam Bondi left, and he put in the replacement, who is most likely temporary. This is Todd Blanche's personal lawyer. And he said, well, the clock is ticking. You're going to be in contempt of Congress as well as Pam Bondi if you don't release that information. So Melania Trump signed the email, Love Melania. Maxwell responded, calling Melania her sweet pea. On Thursday, Melania Trump characterized the email as casual and a polite reply. So some of the family members of Virginia Guthrie, who was a high-profile victim who died allegedly by suicide, said First Lady Melania Trump is now shifting the burden onto survivors under politicized conditions that protect those of power, protect the Department of Justice, the law enforcement, prosecutors, and the Trump administration, which has still not fully complied with the Epstein File Transparency Act, said the group. Thomas Massie again argued that it is up to Todd Blanche to bring the charges, not to Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene similarly said it was up to the DOJ to get justice for the victims, though she praised Melania for bringing the issue at a time when it had totally fallen out of the news cycle. Don't think that Melania did this for altruistic reasons. There's something personal when she brings this up. The First Lady has never spoken publicly about the issue prior to this press conference, ignoring a shouted question about Maxwell during the unreleased event, during an unrelated event in February, rather. So, again, a document that claims that Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump, contradicting the established narrative. The document, part of the Epstein files, suggests that Epstein introduced Melania to Trump in the late 1990s. And so it's not just the word of Michael Wolff. They also have a document there. You know, when Stephen Colbert was joking about the ceasefire, it was actually pretty funny. First time I've laughed at Stephen Colbert, and I can't remember when. But he pointed out, first of all, he said, so we have this peace plan, which we're not allowed to see, right? And Lindsey Graham says that the peace plan has to be approved by Congress. War doesn't have to be approved by Congress, which is what the Constitution says. But if you want to have peace, it's got to be approved by Congress. And Congress hasn't even seen the so-called ceasefire plan. Nobody has. We just have to take Trump's word for it. How good is that? Well, we know that in the past, Trump had called for nothing less than an unconditional surrender. But we know that there are at least 10 conditions in this surrender. He claims that he's taken a surrender from them. And there are at least 10 conditions in this unconditional surrender. And of course, the 4 key things that key objectives that we now hear in a roundabout way from leakers telling the New York Times, presumably, and the New York Times reporting it, because Trump won't tell us what the goals and objectives are. We can kind of read between the lines. We can get information from leakers, but we're not allowed to know what their objectives were. But according to the New York Times article, Bibi came in, did a presentation, an hour presentation with the Mossad chief. And I said, well, we got 4 goals here. First one is decapitation. Second one, we need to eradicate their military, their couple of ships, their missile production, their drone production, things like that. And the military said, well, we could do those first 2. We could assassinate somebody. We could blow up a bunch of planes and drones and missiles. Then the next one was regime change. Well, that's a completely different thing than assassinating leaders. That's not so easily done. And then finally, nukes. Well, it turns out that none of those things really, other than the decapitation strike, which they did the first day, but in terms of eradicating the military, I think we can pretty much see that they've been able to keep up the pace of attacks and actually increase them recently, increase the frequency as well as the accuracy, because they're using their newer missiles now that they have used up the anti-ballistic missiles stock that U.S. and Israel had at the beginning, throwing their older missiles, their less accurate ones. Now that the defenses have been diminished, they're sending in their more accurate stuff. Anyway, the regime change stuff has not been accomplished. The nukes have not been accomplished, not being talked about. And Stephen Colbert joked, he said, well, there is one thing that he did accomplish. It's true that he has reached all of his objectives. It's been weeks since anybody mentioned the Epstein files. And then Melania jumps in and does it. So we're going to take a quick break, folks, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Making sense common again. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
APS Radio delivers multiple channels of music right to your mobile device. Get the APS Radio app today and listen wherever you go.
Welcome back, folks. We've got some comments here. I want to say thank you to DG8. He says, David, any chance of getting Casey Push, Ohio Republican candidate who's running against Vivek the Snake in Ohio Republican primary? He stated he would not send Ohio National Guard to Iran.
Well, then he's got my vote. I'd love to talk to him about that then. Yeah. I'll try to reach out to him and get Karen to reach out to him. Actually, she books the guest. So we'll try to get him on. I don't know when your primaries are, but hopefully we still got time.
And Stealth Patriot says, when the president said a whole civilization would die tonight, and I saw the response after the obvious textbook genocidal statement, I began to think, which civilization is coming to an end?
That's exactly right. That was what I said yesterday. I said, yeah, I think our civilization has come to an end when I see this. And I'm going to talk about the responses because we've got some high-profile people who responded to that in unbelievable ways. We got a former Fox News commentator who's on his own now. We've got top religious leaders that are out there. And it is disturbing to see when they break down the demographics of the people who support this war. It's disturbing to see people who characterize themselves as evangelical Protestants, which I would say I would broadly, in any polls or whatever, they would characterize me that way. Whatever that means. We kind of have a general idea of what that means. But when I look at that, I look at people by age. We're anywhere from 65 to 95% of the people in my age and religious groups in terms of the polls support this war. I'm thinking, what in the world is going on with this stuff? Our civilization really has died or gone senile, I guess. I don't know. Gone off the rails following apostasy. We don't understand right from wrong anymore? Is that really the case? Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
We've got Sidney Falco says, I'm a bit confused by how silent Rand Paul has been after trying to pass his Iran war restrictions bill. Nearly nothing but pro-Trump stuff since.
Well, I haven't seen that, but maybe when we look at the reaction of Trump going after a lot of the most famous MAGA supporters that he's had for 10 years. He went after Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owen, Alex Jones. He took each and every one of them and did a Pam Bondi on them, not going to respond to the comments that they made one way or the other. Instead, he's going to go to an ad hominem attack on them. And perhaps that's what Rand Paul is looking at, although he's had ad hominem attacks in the past. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But they're talking about bringing up the stopping the war yet again in the Senate. Fetterman has said that yet again he will vote for the war. And Rand Paul has said yet again that he will vote to stop the war. So we'll see what happens with that. It is a crazy world that we live in. Talk about civilization ending. We now have a fake AI singer that goes by the name of Eddie Dalton. That's what his creator named him. But he now has this AI program, or this persona, this character, this voice that he's created, now has 11 spots on the singles chart on iTunes out of the top 100. So out of the top 100, 11 spots. He's also got the number 3 on the album chart. This is what it sounds like, basically.
I don't move as good as I used to.
See, it sounds good.
Some days it takes
I like it.
a minute or two. But the world keeps turning.
It even has AI generate a person so you can watch them sing like it was live.
Just carries you through. I've had good days and a few slip away. Had a few things work out a different way.
All right, so that's enough. You get the idea. It's got 11 spots on the iTunes Top 100. And, when I look at this, I enjoy it because it is a style of music. Just like the live concert we went to the other day, it's a style of music. As I said, music really is a language, right? It has to be a little bit different. If it's something that is completely off the charts, like in the early 20th century, you had these people who started to get into atonalism, and because they wanted to completely abandon the chord progressions and the harmonies and the melody structures that Western music had had for centuries. And so Schoenberg was one of them. They just go into this atonalism and just sound like you're hitting random notes on the keyboard. And nobody can relate to that. There needs to be some sort of a language that is there that people are familiar with, and yet to change it up somewhat. And so there has to be this fine balance between the familiar and what you're used to, as well as something that is new. And we have looked at, as we look at our art, our music, and our visual arts, and our movies, we have become so repetitive. I mean, just look at what Disney does. It's just, how many different times can they do a sequel to an animated film that they did 30 years ago?
One of the things is, the people that were coming up, in the 80s and 70s, there wasn't nearly as much media that had been made. A lot of these people, took from books or from stories, whereas now we're dealing with people that have grown up watching nothing but TV and movies. So we're getting a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of a derivative at this point.
It's kind of like what happens with AI. They've said that AI is going to hit the wall once you flood the internet with all synthetic data. Then it's kind of like mad cow disease, right? They're eating their own data, and it gets dumber and dumber. We've already seen this happen to our civilization, to society. We just keep feeding off of the derivatives, and it keeps getting dumber and dumber. But if you're just going to repackage something that is familiar like that, AI can do that better than humans at Disney. We're going to go back and copy the animation of previous generations and come up, well, this time we can do it live, or we can do it with computer-generated people. So I think it's an interesting phenomenon. It tells us a lot about our society. But he's got 2 in the top 10. Number 3, number 8. Then he's got, if you go to the top 20, he's got 3 of them. If you go all the way up to the top 40, which used to be what people would look at, when we were doing live music, we'd look at the tunes in the top 40s and pick which ones we wanted to cover. But, the top 40 was always the kind of the benchmark. He's got 4 of them in the top 40. So he's got, roughly 10% all the way along in terms of what's there. And I don't know how much the creator is Dallas Little, and I don't know if that's even a real name, but I don't know, when he creates this, how much of it is his. Is he just going in and saying, make up a song about this topic and letting the AI make up the lyrics, and it gives it a style? Let's kind of do it in blues or R&B or whatever. Does he just give it some general broad guidelines and let it create all that? Or does he come in with lyrics and have it to do the music? I don't know how much creation he's actually involved in.
For me, I've played around a little bit, but the weakest part of the AI that I've tried for, doodling around with creating goofy songs is the lyrics. Mm-hmm. It can get kind of close, but it doesn't actually understand what makes a logical sentence. So sometimes it'll just throw a word in there because it rhymes.
Yeah. And it'll go into a lot of detail about something, but it won't really kind of connect the dots or make the broader arc. I think it's what you're talking about there. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. And yet, we get, when we look at this, and we look at this genocidal puppet of Israel, Donald Trump, how do we get somebody like that, right? Well, of course, we got lots of money from Zionist billionaires who had an agenda that they wanted him to enact. We had also the unwavering support of people who were sick of the madness of the degenerate Democrats, as we can see with the LGBT stuff. And here's an example of this from Canada. This is truly the LGBT alphabet tribe taken to the, I guess, illogical conclusion.
Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW G2SLGBTQIA+.
Let me give that to you again. This is actually...
Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW G2SLGBTQIA+.
Yeah, that's not a satire. But this is a satire of the, and they use the satirical, it's now become an internet meme of this overweight J.D. Vance with a beard and kind of an afro. And they have him, J.D. Vance, at a spelling bee where he has to spell that.
JD, if you spell this word correctly, you will be crowned this year's Scripps National Spelling Bee Champion. The word is Meathwig 2 Slug Buck E+.
Can you give me the country of origin, please?
Yes, of course. The country of origin is none other than Canada.
give me the definition, please?
A single word used to describe every minority group ever conceived, including several that are still pending approval.
Mish, wig 2, slug, bupku, ia, e, plus. Can you use it in a sentence?
You are not a member of the Maywig 2 Slug QQEA plus community, therefore we will not be hiring you for this position.
Me wig 2 slug baku ea plus. MMIWG2SLGBTQIA plus.
That is correct. You are this year's National Spelling Bee champion. Congratulations.
That is a masterpiece of a parody, I think, of something that was already absurd. They take it to the next level. And here's why I play that. Not only is it fun to watch that, but I play that because we need to think about the different forms of evil, right? We have these choices that are put before us. If you believe that the elections are actually counted, let's just go with that. We'll assume that the elections are actually real, and we have a choice. But when people line up behind this, which evil is the one that is more self-evident? Which evil is the one that is more easily controlled by us? Is it the wars? Or is it that kind of nonsense? I mean, we can look at that, and that is absurd to everybody, and they're actually burying themselves because it is so obvious what that's about. And it is something that we can also control. We can't control the war, unfortunately. We can't do anything about Trump. Look at, everybody is talking about, how do we get rid of Trump? Well, you can't get rid of him, and you can't stop the war. I mean, the people who signed up in the military, they're going to do whatever he tells them to do. It doesn't matter to them. They're just going to follow orders. And so how do we stop this? That is the key. When we look at this, what is the greater danger? Is the greater danger the evil that you see or the evil that you don't see? That's why I've said for the longest time, I thought that Trump was the most dangerous choice for people and the Republican Party because they get behind you, they say. They say that they agree with you on the issues. They get behind you, you take your guard down, and you may even, because you dislike these other people so much, you may even applaud them because you perceive them as part of your tribe against the other tribe. And yet they stab you in the back. When you look at the threat of the LGBTQ stuff to children, for example, there are ways that you can handle that. And actually, as it gets crazy, it is actually breeding resistance, whereas Trump breeds passivity. Let me give you another example of this. We've got scientists who have gene hacked a plant so that it grows 5 types of psychoactive drugs at once. Exactly what we need, isn't it? So it does everything from magic mushrooms to DMT, the satanic drug, to THC and marijuana. It's got all kinds of psychoactive substances, and this is one plant. They have modified a tobacco plant because tobacco plants, for whatever reason, I guess it's because they're trying to come up with different strains for taste or whatever, but tobacco is the most heavily genetically modified organism anywhere. And so what they're saying is they have taken certain things like even the substances that they get off of the toads that are hallucinogenic. And so they have taken things across the plant and animal kingdom, genes, right? And because the genetic code that God created, the thing that points to a designer God, both the plant and animal kingdom use genes. And so you can combine these things. It's one of the things I've talked about. What is the difference between selective breeding and genetic modification? Well, with selective breeding, you can breed a wide variety of dogs and cats and things like that. And so you got the cat kind, which in nature we see anything from lions and tigers to leopards to household cats and things like that. You can take dogs, which you see with wolves or domesticated dogs, but look at the variety that we've been able to do with selective breeding with dogs. And yet, when they do genetic modification, they can take genes that have certain attributes from plants or from insects or whatever, and they can add those into an animal. And so that is the huge difference. And so they're bragging about the fact they've genetically engineered super tobacco plants that can produce these natural psychedelics. Psilocin and psilocybin, that are found in magic mushrooms, DMT from what is the name of that plant again, Travis? The Ahayusha or whatever?
Ayahuasca?
Oh, thank you. That's it. Yeah. The ayahuasca plant. And bufotenin and DMT as well. That is secreted by the Sonoran desert toad. They can do all those things all at once. I guess the question is, going back to Jurassic Park, the question
why?
that Jeff Goldblum could say, you got to ask yourself, yeah, you can do it, but why would you do this, right?
I continually hear stories of people saying like, oh, I took, one of these things and it fried me for a very long time. I can't imagine what happens if you get one of these plants and it hits you with everything all at once.
That's right. And so who's doing this? Well, this is the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, because if they didn't bless us with this stuff, who would, right? Straight from Satan. So
you want to commune with demons? Israel has you covered.
That's right. And they talk about its therapeutic potential. And we've got Joe Rogan at the end of January had an interview with RFK Jr., and the two of them were talking about how we have to get psychedelics to people because it has the ability, people who are depressed or have other psychological issues, they said, it can be very useful because of the neuroplasticity. That's the ability of the brain to change and to adapt to something. Same type of stuff that you struggle with a stroke. You have the neuroplasticity issues. Somebody that's brain damaged on one side, given enough time, sometimes your brain can heal itself. That's what they call neuroplasticity. It can rewire to take over the functions that were lost in a particular part of your brain due to a stroke or some other kind of injury. And so what they're saying is, these people have brains and we can rewire their brains with these drugs. We've known that for a while, the Jim Ignatowski effect. The character from Taxi, though. But anyway, if you look at those really funny episode of that where they show him, you always see this guy who's just, zoned out if you know the show. And they go back to him in college and he is super sharp, super straight, and he does one hit of a drug and he turns into the character that you always saw in Taxi. But this is being sold to people. It's being sold as a good thing. There's actually an article on Brownstone selling it as a good thing. We've got conservative Republicans selling it as a good thing. We've got the governor of Texas. And of course, it's not a surprise that Joe Rogan and RFK Jr. would sell it because they tend to like drugs. But this is a real deception that is waiting to take down our society, quite frankly. They brag about the fact that if they were to genetically modify these tobacco plants, it's cruelty-free. It's a great ecological alternative because people are harvesting these plants in order to get this demonic particle, the DMT.
I'm really curious, is there a big problem with cruelty to plants in the tobacco industry that they have to specify this? Are they out there, being mean to the...
Well, I don't know, the toads that are secreting this stuff, this kind of poison. I guess that's, we don't want to kill the toads to get this secretion from them. The Sonoran desert toad is increasingly threatened, they say. It's kind of like the desert tortoise that was out there at the Bundy Ranch. It turns out those desert tortoises thrived off of the cattle because the cattle were going to the water troughs that the ranchers had set up out there. And as they defecated on the land, the frogs were getting moisture from that. So they had more moisture than they did before, and they were thriving from that. Anyway, the team intentionally stopped short of having the plants pass on these substances to their offspring. This is another point about genetic modification. That is seed modification. one of the reasons that they've been very, very careful about prohibiting, even in China, the modification of developing babies at very, very early stages, when it's just a few cells, is that if you modify them genetically at that stage, the genetic modification will be permanent and can be passed on to subsequent generations. That's called a seed modification. You can do temporary things, and they have done that with animals in terms of experiments, grafting in some genetics to make an animal glow at night, getting some genes from a plant or something like that. But it wears off because your body, once that template has been established, your body starts, reverts back to type, if you will. But if you do it at an early enough stage, for a living organism, then it becomes permanent and it's passed on to its offspring. And what they're saying is they stopped short of doing this to the plants at a very early stage. They didn't want to do a seed modification because they didn't want to have this passed on. But they demonstrated the proof of concept, and it is a satanic concept, if ever there was one. I just got to say, if the CIA and Mossad didn't do these kinds of hallucinogenic drugs, then who would, right? That's the reality of this. You want to know who the handmaids of Satan are? Just look at the people who are creating LSD, creating this kind of stuff as well. It truly is insane. Well, we're going to take a quick break because we've got Gerald Celente is going to be joining us at the top of the hour. And there is some information about the tolls and things like that I want to cover in detail before Gerald joins us. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with that.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Tell Alexa to add the APS radio skill and have access to the best channels anywhere. From country to blues, classic hits to news, APS Radio curates incredibly diverse playlists for you to enjoy. Get details at apsradio.com.
Welcome back, folks. We got DG8, and thank you again, DG8. Says, David, the list of the Bilderberg attendees includes Scott Bessent, Mark Carney, Alex Karp, and Secretary of Army David Driscoll. Bessent and Driscoll there is a violation of the Logan Act.
We're hearing more and more about the Secretary of the Army, David Driscoll. Pete Hegseth wants him out. He says, I'm not leaving. Kind of interesting. A very different situation than what we had with the person who was in control of the, I forget which zone it was, for Venezuela. But he didn't like what he saw, evidently, from what people were saying. He resigned. David Driscoll has been very vocal in his opposition to what the Trump administration is doing. But you're right, it is a violation of the Logan Act. These are private individuals that are that work for the government, and these people who work for the government and are doing things evidently that are going to affect the government, meeting privately with the captains of industry and the press and other people like that. Bilderberg has always been a violation of the Logan Act. They'll come back and they'll say, well, we're operating under Chatham House rules. It's like, no, you're operating on the Constitution. I don't know what these Chatham House rules that you made up are, and I couldn't care less. Well, speaking of rules that have been made up, we had, again, the conditions that for the ceasefire that we're not allowed to know yet. And Trump was asked about Israel continuing the attacks against Lebanon when that was supposed to be one of the conditions of the ceasefire. And this is what Trump had to say.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Well, I guess we'll let that go through, but that's now okay, says Robert Jeffress of the First Baptist Church in Dallas. As I joked yesterday, I said, you know, they don't care if a president drops bombs on a country that didn't attack us, but don't drop an F-bomb because I have a problem with that. Well, Robert Jeffress doesn't have a problem with that either. He just says, well, you know, presidents use salty language. They all did that, you know, and not in public, not on a regular basis. And this is what a lot of people are pointing out. But the real issue is not the F-bomb, but the real issue is threatening to destroy a civilization. And what Trump just said there was something that, of course, he knows, we all know. And we have said this basically what Reagan said when he got out of Beirut. He goes, these people have always been fighting and they're going to continue to fight. There's nothing we can do about that. Why get involved in the middle of this? I've called it the Hatfields and McCoys for a very long time, and that's what it is. They hate each other so viscerally, you'll never have any peace. And of course, it's not even that. Netanyahu and his party have a design for greater Israel, and that means that they want to turn Lebanon and the rest of the Middle East into exactly what we saw in Gaza. What happened in Gaza was not retaliation for Hamas on October the 7th alone. It was a deliberate plan to eradicate the people from that area, to level it so they can then take the empty land and build it back as they see fit. So the Iranian president on Thursday warned that planned negotiations would be meaningless unless Israel committed to a ceasefire in Lebanon. So just understand that even if they commit to a ceasefire, the word of this Israeli government is meaningless always. They have always engaged in treachery and perfidy. Trump does that as well when he is following along with them. Pakistani leadership, which brokered the deal. There you go. Those are the people who will probably get the Nobel Peace Prize, not Donald Trump, if they can broker a deal. Anyway, the deal, said the Pakistani leadership, which put the deal together, stated that Lebanon was included in the ceasefire. Trump has subsequently denied such an agreement, leading to denunciations from the Iranian side. And yet, when you see Trump, he makes this statement, they're supposed to stop. And then when they don't do it, a little after that, he comes back and he says, well, all these people are saying they know what's in the agreement. They don't know what's in the agreement. They haven't seen the agreement because he hasn't shown it to anybody. But the people who put the agreement together said that the ceasefire was a part of it. And he's very angry because Israel didn't do a ceasefire. And yet he comes back and he says it's not a condition later on. You see how he changes his story from hour to hour? Even within the same day, he will change his story on multiple issues. You can't trust a thing that the man says. And we should have learned that a long time ago. The repeated aggression by the Zionist entry against Lebanon is a flagrant violation of the initial ceasefire agreement and a dangerous indicator of deceit and a lack of commitment to potential accords, said the Iranian president. He said, our hands will remain on the trigger, and Iran will never abandon its Lebanese brothers and sisters. Yeah, there is, whatever you want to say about it, they at least have a loyalty to people that is not present in our Republican Party, to the American people even. Iran is more loyal to the Hezbollah people in Lebanon than the Republican Party is to Americans. Israel and Iranian, well, they say in this article here from Just the News, the Iranian proxy, Hezbollah. No, they're an ally. Isn't it interesting how they use these coded words like that? Hezbollah and Iran are allies. It's just that simple. Currently engaged in heavy fighting in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah entered the war last month, defying analysts' predictions that they would remain on the sidelines after sustaining losses from previous clashes with Israel. But it was a large-scale attack, as Trump said. As a matter of fact, initial reports said at least 254 people killed, wounded 1,165, causing significant material damage. The airstrikes came hours after the U.S. and Iran reached a Pakistani-mediated 2-week ceasefire, calling for a cessation of hostilities across multiple fronts, including Lebanon, which now Trump is walking back from that. I guess he got a call from his master, Bibi Netanyahu, as I don't say that. The 2-week ceasefire does not include Lebanon, said Netanyahu in a statement hours after the truce was abandoned. So I guess Trump has got to say that now. He's got to change his tune. The Israeli strikes were carried out without prior warning during rush hour in Beirut, striking residential buildings and apartments in several densely populated neighborhoods, causing panic and chaos in the streets. You know, it's interesting, as I point out, I watched some interviews with a guy who wrote a book. I'd like to try to get him on, but I don't know if I can or not. But I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can. Bombing to Win was the book that he wrote. His name is Robert Pape. He's somebody who had a very interesting story about how he got into this. I mean, he's not somebody that went to West Point or the Naval Academy or whatever. You know, he was civilian and he was never in the military. But what he did was, just from a historical and economic standpoint, he got interested in the Vietnam War and the Korean War and these other wars. We use bombs and decimate these areas and yet still lose the war. And so why is that? You know, what is it? You know, certainly air power alone does not win wars. We have yet to internalize that lesson, but it's been given to us over and over again. We still haven't figured that out. So he wrote a book about it, and he said, you know, what is necessary for bombing to win is that you have to go for the strategic equipment, which is what Iran has done. Yes, they have lobbed bombs at civilian targets as well, but primarily they've been focused on taking out the eyes and ears of the missile defense systems and things like that. Our bombing has not been that strategic, and certainly Israel's is not. Israel is looking to create another Gaza-cide, a Gaza-cide genocide. And so they are targeting all these civilian targets in Lebanon. That always backfires, actually, as a matter of fact. According to the Lebanese Red Cross, and here's something that's not pointed out in this article here from UPI. When you see them refer to the Red Cross, understand the Red Cross was founded by a Christian, founded by a Swiss Christian, who basically took the Swiss flag and inverted it, right? The Swiss flag was a red flag with a white cross on it, white Christian cross on it. He inverted that flag, and it was a Christian organization trying to help people that had been hurt in war. That is the way Christians should approach this. They're not allowed to use the red flag symbol. In Muslim countries, they have to use a crescent, so it's the red crescent in those countries. And Israel hates the cross as well. And so in Israel, they have to have a red Star of David. And so when you see that this is the Lebanese Red Cross, this is a Christian area, folks, that Israel is targeting the population that's there. And that doesn't make any difference from I mean, we're not to think about this in terms of tribes, but just understand this is not, for so many people who hate everything Islam categorically, this is not an Islamic area. It's a Christian area. Wounded and rescued operations continue, while the health ministry reported 112 people killed, 837 injured. The civil defense people said 254 killed, 1,165 wounded, adding that the toll in Beirut reached 92 dead and 742 injured. Israel is bragging about the fact that they had 100 targets, and in 10 minutes, they destroyed 100 targets inside of Lebanon. It was a massive strike. As a matter of fact, the biggest strike that the Israeli government has had. And they call this operation Eternal Darkness. That's what the synagogue of Satan is bringing to you. Well, we got Gerald Celente ready, and I know Gerald Celente's got a lot he wants to say about the war. He's been talking about the war for years. He could see it coming because he looks at trends. And if you could see this coming miles away, as Gerald Celente did, if you look at the trends, and he's been warning us about the consequences of this and what would happen with the Strait of Hormuz. And we're watching all of this stuff now unfold. It's like having seen all of this, we got to now watch the movie in real time. It's very frustrating for Gerald to see this and for all of us to see it. We're going to talk to Gerald when we come back, and we're talking about the economic consequences and what all this means. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Whether you're feeling like the blues or bluegrass, APS Radio has you covered. Check out a wide variety of channels on our app at apsradio.com.
All right, welcome back. And joining us now is Gerald Celente of trendsjournal.com. And of course, Gerald has been... Sorry, I had to sneeze there. It's about to come on me again here. But Gerald has been warning us, as I said before the break, about this for a very, very long time. I don't know what's happening with my sneezes. Anyway, right. He's been warning us about this for a very long time. And again, we're going to talk about this and maybe, talk a little bit about what happens economically with this, because we can't do anything in terms of military response to this as individuals, but we can respond to it in terms of economics. And there are some things that we need to keep in mind as to what's going to be happening to our society. Not a lot of good news, but there are a few things that we can do to prepare for this. And so joining us now is Gerald Celente, trendsjournal.com, and you can save 10% off with the code NIGHT. Thank you for joining us, Gerald. Always great to have you on.
Thank you so much. I've never been sadder in my life. I've been at this for 46 years.
Yes, I know.
One of my books, Trend Tracking, far better than Megatrends, Time Magazine. Here, how I became a trend forecaster, right? Here it is. Mm-hmm. The Iran conflict.
Yep.
Late 1970s. They taught us to hate Iran, with 99.99% of the people having absolutely no idea of the United States overthrow and the UK of the democratically elected president of Iran in 1953, Mohammad Mossadegh.
Yeah, I'm so sick of seeing that 47 thing. As a matter of fact, one thing that really made me want to throw up, I saw some guy on social media and he says, 47 years they've been doing this to us. And it's like, stop with the 47 years. And Trump is the 47th president. It's a sign from God. And it's like it's a sign from God that you're a total idiot. You don't know anything about history or the Bible. If you're going to talk about that, it's been 73 years.
Again, they have no idea. Matter of fact, the only newspaper that finally released the facts that I know of about 10 years ago was the Financial Times. When they finally released the telegrams that went from Winston Churchill, a fat, stupid, ugly, cigar-smoking slob that people bow down to, a little arrogant, kind of like a Trump, loves war but never fights, gave us World War I and World War II. That slime ball telegrams from him to Kermit Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's grandson, that we must overthrow the government of Mossadegh. You know why? Because that lousy SOB, Mossadegh, had the gall, the nerve to say the oil in Iran does not belong to Anglo-Iranian Oil, better known today as BP, or Standard Oil, better known today as ExxonMobil.
Yeah.
They overthrew the government because of oil and put in that piece of crap, arrogant scum, the Shah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right?
Did you see the fact
in,
that, did you see that at CPAC, they brought in the Shah's son? Well, everybody else has got these No Kings rallies going on worldwide. CPAC brings in a king's son, right? And want to set up a monarchy again in Iran. It's absolutely beyond parody.
You're being disrespectful. It's the crown prince, isn't it? The prince.
I don't know what
Shove
it
this
is.
prince crap up you know what.
Yeah.
A little, not a fat little slob.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back, they brought in the Savak, the secret police that made the SS look good. They slaughtered tens of thousands of Palestinians that protested against this. When the war broke out, again, this is when I became a political atheist. Another little piece of slime scum that morons and imbeciles look up to, little Jimmy Carter, comes back from spending New Year's Eve with the Shah and his wife. And they had to, he gets out of the helicopter and all those little boys dressed up in their costumes with all the medals. They salute him. He's the president. He comes out and he says, quote, the Shah is the island of stability in the Middle East.
Our greatest ally, like Israel.
Yep. And in the Bronx, we used to say, BS has its own sound. This guy's going down. That's when I started playing the golden oil futures. Anyway, it became a radicalized religious movement because of the United States refusing to leave Iran. How dare you tell us to leave our embassy in your country? How dare you tell us that? Hey, get the hell out of here. We're not leaving. Oh, and they arrested all those people in the embassy? Who were they? All CIA guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we don't talk about this too much, but after all that stuff happened, they shredded all these papers, right? And Iranian students went in and painstakingly, over a very long period of time, took all the shredded paper and pieced it back together so they could get the documents. And they've got a museum. They turned the U.S. Embassy into a museum to try to tell the Iranian people what the U.S. and Mossad did to them. And yet nobody in this country understands that. I learned about it before the Shah was overthrown, before they took the embassy. I learned about it because there were a lot of Iranian students at USF where I was in engineering, and they were out there protesting with balaclavas over their head. I said, what are you guys doing that for? I understand protests. I mean, there's a lot of protests about this or that all the time. But I said, why are you wearing the mask? And they told me about Savak. I was like, wow. I said, your CIA trained them. And that was my wake-up moment to realize that, hey, are we the bad guys here?
As I said, you think the United States would have invaded Syria, Libya, and Iraq if their major export was broccoli?
Yeah, right.
And how about Trump? Hey, we got to get the narco-terrorists from Venezuela. We're killing all those people in their boats 1,500 miles from here. All those narco-terrorists. And then what does he do? Kidnaps the president and his wife of Venezuela. Hey, it's all about oil. It's all about oil. We own the oil now. We got the oil now, all right? This is disgusting. And
Drug
now,
wars.
Going back to that slime ball, that little arrogant, may he rot in hell, Jimmy Carter, and that other SOB Brzezinski, remember him?
Oh, yeah. The guy that was all about the technocracy. When you look at the drug war in Venezuela, when you look at the oil war in Iran, Now, understand our history in all of this, and understand how the CIA is the one who've been running this drug war. They're the ones who created crack cocaine. The drug war was a creation of the United Nations. They actually created the schedule of 4 different classes of drugs and handed it to Nixon. He called it his drug war. Yep. And when you look at our history with Iran, not only does it go back to 1953, but it also includes things like the Iran-Contra issue, where they made deals with the Ayatollah, where they delayed the release of these CIA hostages in Iran and used it for their own purposes so they could fund a secret war in South America. I mean, it's just, again, it repeats itself. It rhymes. It's always a little bit different, but it's always the same stuff. It's the CIA running drugs, doing assassinations, doing regime overthrows, and leaving us worse off than we ever were before.
Again, that book, War's a Racket by Smedley Butler,
Yeah.
the most decorated Marine in history back in the 1930s. He talks all about it.
Mm-hmm.
How we fight for United Fruit, for the Brown brothers, the one that the Bush family was involved in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking about that bastard Brzezinski. Oh, his daughter's on that MSD. Maybe, yeah, that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the slime ball. That's the slime ball that they created. Oh, you all hate Al-Qaeda, huh? And that Osama bin Laden. Yeah, these are the ones that created it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Russians were fighting against the Taliban in Afghanistan to try to stop them from overthrowing the government.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jimmy Carter and the Brzezinskis brought in the Mujahideen,
Mm-hmm.
which is now Al-Qaeda, run by Osama bin Laden. They're the ones that created it to defeat the Russians from trying to stop the Taliban from taking over Afghanistan. Afghanistan was a very, very culturally advanced nation before the Taliban took over.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
again,
when you go back and look at it, you can see the bipartisan lines of all this stuff. You got, as you point out, Brzezinski and these guys helping Al-Qaeda get set up. You had the old warmonger, John McCain, and Lindsey Graham. They're there. John McCain was going around about the same time to these Republican women's groups, and he had one of the Al-Qaeda guys with him. They called him Mujahideen at the time. And he would say, give us some money. You can adopt a Muj, right? You can give some money and you can help the war effort in Afghanistan. Well, now, they just installed a guy who's got a pedigree of being with the Mujahideen, then with the rebranded Al-Qaeda, then with ISIS, then with al-Nusra. Now he has been installed by the American government, by the Pentagon and the CIA as head of Syria. And he is persecuting everybody that he can find there that is not part of his tribe. It truly is amazing to see this repeat over and over and over again. They keep getting away with it.
It's disgusting.
It is.
Yeah. Again, you're talking about Syria.
Mm-hmm.
How about the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner, Barack Obama?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who lied his way into office. And before one about John McCain, another little arrogant slime ball. May he rot in hell. Hey, don't you know who my daddy was? Oh, my daddy was a general or something? Oh, and I only crashed a couple of planes on the aircraft. Hey, but it's okay. Don't you know who my father is? As George Carlin said, it's one big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
And it's the Epstein club. That's the other part of it.
Yeah. And when you look at Zbigniew Brzezinski...
Let me finish this. Going back to Obama. This is the guy that lied his way into office. As soon as he got in, the Afghan troop surge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and who was the clown boy, the arrogant guy that's the general betrayed us?
Mm-hmm.
Betray us?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what is Petraeus now working for? Oh, KKR, that big hedge fund. Oh, yeah. All right. Now, going back to Obama. Gave us the Afghan war, ramped it up. Overthrew Gaddafi, the richest country in Africa, where the people in Libya had more rights and benefits than most people in the world. It was a great tourist spot, as was Syria. He was the one to try to overthrow the beginning and the destruction of the Assad government. Whether you liked them or not, none of my business as an American. And look what he did to it. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then they wonder why you have all these immigrants that have flooded into Europe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Listen to Gaddafi's speech warning that if you overthrow my government, you are going to be flooded with migrants coming out of the countries around us. And that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. And they turned it into a weapons bazaar where everybody can buy all these weapons out of Libya. Also, slave markets that they have there now. Every time we go in, it gets much worse. Just like our involvement in Iran set up the Ayatollah. Now this decapitation strike, because they're not getting regime change, they have solidified the people of Iran against Trump. They want to say, well, we want you out in the streets and take over your government and hand it back to us, right? Well, instead, what they did, they got out in the streets and they circled the infrastructure that Trump was threatening to blow up as he's threatening to destroy their civilization. But they're going to wind up having a more radicalized Iran than they did in the past. And this is consistent with the repeated failures of the Pentagon and the CIA throughout decades. Every time they go in, they make it worse. And so you got situations when you talk about what's happening in Iran. There was recently and it was in Haaretz newspaper, they're talking about the fact that a major synagogue in Tehran was destroyed. And it's like, what? A synagogue in Tehran? I mean, these radical, you can't talk to these people from Iran, right? And yet they allowed a synagogue there. I saw a video prior to that. I saw a video from an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, and he said, yeah, there's about 35,000 Jews in Iran, and they leave them alone. It's just like Assad and the Jews and the Christians in Syria. He'd leave them alone. But then you put in the people that we put in, and they start killing everybody. And there was actually, in response to the Israeli destruction of a synagogue in Iran, in Tehran, Iran, you had a member of parliament who is also Jewish. They have Jews in their parliament. Do you think they got any Muslims in the Knesset? I don't know if they do, or if they do, they don't have much power.
You know, going back to the war, we've been warning, as you were saying before I went on the air, we've been warning for decades. It's in your Trends Journal.
Mm-hmm.
For years, for months, for weeks, we've been saying, if the United States and or Israel goes to war against Iran, Brent crude is going to spike to above $100 a barrel.
That's right.
And it's going to bring down the global economy, the equity markets, and there's no way that they will defeat the Iranians. Mm-hmm. They are very advanced scientifically, technologically, and militarily.
Mm-hmm.
And to make this a zillion % clear, the United States has not won a war since World War II. Could not beat the Vietnamese, only killed over 3 million of them.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't beat the Iraqis, we only killed a couple of million over there. Couldn't beat the Afghans, the longest war in American history. And you wouldn't have won World War II, and you can't say this, they hate you for this, without the Russians. They were the first ones to defeat the Germans. After the Germans killed, some 27 million Russians in Operation Barbarossa. What makes you think you're going to beat the Iranians?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's talk a little bit about oil, because one of the aspects of this was the ceasefire was supposed to open this up. There are something like 800 ships that are trapped in that area to try to get out. They had, I think, 2 of them get out. And because Israel would not stop attacking Lebanon, I think they closed that down again. But even if they were to bring this up, people are saying, well, we might be able, under this protocol that they're talking about, might be able to get enough traffic through there. We might be able to have 15 tankers a day go through there. They had typically, before all this stuff was kicked off by Trump and Israel, they had about 100 to 140 tankers going through there. So you're looking at an 85 to 90% reduction in the amount of oil that's going through there. So even if they get that going, it's not a good sign. And one of the reasons I think that oil dropped so much is because there's so much oil that is a backlog. I mean, they filled up all these tankers, they filled up all their storage areas. And so the people who are trading oil say, well, if all that hits at once, it's going to depress the price of oil in the near term. But in the long term, it's going to take a long time for them to get production back up. There's been damaged facilities, as well as even if you just shut down an oil well, it takes a very long time for it to come back up. Talk about the economic knock-on effects of this that we're going to see.
Listen to the IMF, all of them, every one of them's coming out. And they're all saying how dangerous this is going to be for the global economy.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw the numbers that came out today, the inflation numbers,
mm-hmm.
and they're spiking. And you're looking at consumer sentiment right now is at almost an all-time low for recent years. And no, this is hurting terribly. But what am I talking about? Let's go back to February 24th when Trump gave his State of the Union address. Well, he bombed them 4 days later. And in your Trends Journal, we came out the same day as this, on the 24th, the magazine came out before his State of the Union address. We said, watch out, he may attack Iran this weekend because the equity markets were going down very badly. The whole AI crisis of overvaluation of it was happening. The Epstein files were becoming a big issue. That's all totally forgotten right now.
Mm-hmm.
And his poll ratings were down across the board. As I said, when all else fails, they take you to war. So now let's go back. Hey, because of me,
Mm-hmm.
the price of gasoline in most states in the United States, $2.30,
Mm-hmm.
which is a total lie. It was $2.92.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I can lie all I want, all right? Don't you know who I am? I'm the guy that lied my way into office and said I'm going to bring peace on earth, all right? I'm not going to start a war, I'm going to stop wars, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the average price of a gallon of gasoline in America?
What is it?
I just went on the air. Was it $4.15?
Wow. It's gone up 15 cents from the beginning of the week. It was just over $4 at the beginning of the week. It's gone up another 15 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is destroying the middle class of this country is gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, you could thank this slime ball for a lot of it. There's a T-shirt I did back in 1992 when he ran for office. Beware of Slick Willie, who deregulated all of these antitrust laws so that bigs could take over everything. Oh, back in Jimmy Carter. Oh, that slime ball, arrogant. Hey, I'm the peanut farm with a pair of cones the size of a peanut, all right? This is the guy that started interstate banking. That's right. Before that, it was only intrastate banking. Bank of America, and that was only out in California.
Mm-hmm.
And then Slimeball Clinton made it happen.
Yep.
When we were young guys, there were, remember savings banks? Remember you used to put your money in a bank and you got nice interest back on it? Those days are over.
Oh, yeah, they are.
The big banks have taken over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to the slimeball Obama. That he's only, what is Clinton worth? About $130 million now? I think the Obama is only worth about $80 million. A little boy of nothing. The Pritzker family brought him in. The Hyatt guy, that fat slob over there in Chicago, in Illinois. Yeah. When Obama was a little nothing over there.
Mm-hmm.
One after another. Obama. Yeah. $29 trillion, the Federal Reserve, to bail out the banksters when the Panic of '08 hit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when we were young guys, there were hardware stores, there were stationery stores, there were shoe stores, there were drug stores, there were fish stores. Everything now is a chain.
That's right.
Because of these slime ball. If they were Italian, you'd call them a mafia. But morons and imbeciles call them politicians. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a liberal. I got a tiny little mind, and I suck up to a lot of crap.
Mm-hmm.
They're murderers and thieves. By their deeds you shall know them. Every time this slimeball Clinton got caught with his pants down, bombs away over Baghdad. You like what he did to Yugoslavia, huh?
Yeah.
One after another.
Yeah. Well, I
think
think
people say, Salenti, we listen to you more, but you get so angry. We're little gutless little slime balls. So don't raise your voice when they're slaughtering people all over the world. Look what they just did to Lebanon.
Yeah.
This is like bombing New York City.
Yeah.
This is a very advanced society. Imagine your home being bombed. Oh, and that slime ball over there, cats, over there in Israel, in your magazine, the Trends Journal, 600,000 Lebanese that have been pushed out of their homes in southern Lebanon. He said, you can't come back, and we're bombing your homes to ruin. We need a safe zone over here.
How do we ever stop that? I mean,
How do we ever stop that?
How do we ever stop this?
Syndicate. It's a crime syndicate. We have the Republicans and the Democrats.
That's right. Yeah. I think
Genocide Joe, you forgot about him?
Oh, yeah. I think Trump, though, is going to be to the Republican Party what Jimmy Carter was to the Democrats. I think he's going to take them down to a level they've never seen before. This is really unpopular in the U.S. We went into Knoxville for a concert, and even though Tennessee is very Republican, and you can look at the big cities like Knoxville and other places like that, they have Democrats that are elected from there. So it's a little bit purple, I guess, to go with their color scheme. But there were a lot of people out on the street with signs protesting all this stuff. You can do that, but it doesn't change anything. Voting doesn't change anything. No. It's all based on the guys with the money, and the guys with the money are the billionaire Zionists. And so we've got, instead of a wag the dog, we got to wag the zog is what's going on right now.
Matter of fact, there's an article that just came out. It's going to be next week's Trends Journal about the DNC saying that they will not come out against AIPAC.
Really? Yeah.
Yep. Just came out. And by the way, I want to talk a bit about Israel. This whole ready? Google it up. In 1947, 33 countries voted in favor of a UN General Assembly Resolution 181, also known as the Partition Plan, which recommended the creation of a Jewish state and an Arab state in mandatory Palestine. The vote on November 29th, 1947 passed, you ready? With 33 nations in favor, 13 against, and 10 absentees. Key supporters included the USA, USSR, France, and Australia, while opposition came largely from Arab and Muslim majority nations. The resolution paved the way for the declaration of Israel's independence on May 14th, 1948. They invented this crap.
Yeah.
They had no right to be there. Oh, shut up, Zelensky. We're the United Nations. You're the United Nothings. Look at the slaughter going on. Look what Gaza's become. It was a very beautiful city, totally demolished. Bombing Beirut. This is an invented place. Oh, and talking about hating Hezbollah? Oh, Hezbollah. Those terrorists? You mean the Lebanese that threw Israel out of Lebanon after they were occupying it for 18 years? Why, Salenti? God gave us that land. It's in the good book, chapter 6, section 8.
Well, they had
a terrorist group.
Yeah.
Lebanese men that gave their lives to throw out the invaders of their country.
That's right. And a lot of Christians there in Lebanon who were allied with Hezbollah. As a matter of fact, as I was pointing out before you came on, they were talking to the Red Cross in Lebanon. You don't have the Red Cross in non-Christian areas. Arabs don't allow it. The Jews don't allow it. They have to have a Red Crescent or a Red Star or whatever. They wouldn't even allow the cross in their country. So that tells us how Christian the area is. And a lot of people have said, Hezbollah is protecting us from the Israelis. And so we support that. And that's, I guess, one of the reasons why they're going after the civilian population that's there.
Yep. This is, again, if you Google it up. Israel withdrew its forces from southern Lebanon on May 24th, 2000, ending an 18-year occupation. You ready? This is the kind of language they use. Following a sustained guerrilla campaign by Hezbollah. The move followed a rise in military casualties and growing domestic pressure in Israel, including the collapse of the southern Lebanon army. and Israeli forces retreat to the blue line. Again, they're occupiers. They're stealers and robbing this country. And this is the other thing. Shove that anti-Semite crap up you know what.
Yeah.
These are not Semites
Yeah.
that are running Israel. They're Eastern Europeans and Khazars, Ashkenazis, Ashkenazi, Ashkenazi. All right?
Well,
That's who they are.
It's an ethnic racist state. They appeal to that for that's their raison d'etre for existing. And yet they call you racist if you oppose their politics.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are racist because they created a racist government that is there.
Yep.
But the language that they use, as I pointed out before you came on, they refer to, again, the press is owned by the Zionist billionaires. And so they refer to Hezbollah as a proxy of Iran. It's like, understand, they're an ally of Iran. And Iran and Hezbollah are more loyal to each other than the U.S., than Israel is to the U.S. They're saying, we're not going to leave them behind. And Hezbollah jumped into this to support Iran as they were being aggressively attacked as war was initiated against them. They joined in to support Iran, and Iran is saying, well, we're not going to abandon them at this point. It's disgusting, as you and I were saying off air. You know, we see these threats about civilization ending, and I said it yesterday. You had a commenter here earlier today say the civilization that's being destroyed is our civilization.
Yeah. IDF spokesman issues evacuation order for Beirut residents. So everybody listening, get out of your house. We're going to bomb you to death. Hey, we're the Israelis. Oh, and by the way, they're doing it with our money.
Yeah.
That's
right.
slimeball Obama. What? Almost $4 billion a year we've been giving Israel. And we're giving them all the bombs and weapons to keep slaughtering people. So everybody get to work. I want your tax money. There's an article, by the way, again, as trend forecasters, we read, you were mentioning, that's the Israeli newspaper. We subscribe to that. We go to Times of Israel. We go to Jerusalem Post. We go to Ynet. We also go to Press TV, Tehran Times, IRNA, ISNA, want to hear what the Iranians have to say. We go to Euronews. We go to BBC, Guardian, France 24, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We read everything. And then we say, this is what they're saying. This is our analysis. And here's what we see our trend forecasts. So whether you like them or not, we read them. And here's an article in not one of my favorite papers, but again, we read everything every day to see what they're saying. How Trump took U.S. to war with Iran.
Oh, yeah, the New York Times article. Yeah.
You heard about this?
Oh, yeah, I covered it. As a matter of fact, the thing I thought was interesting about that was not only how this is manipulated by Netanyahu, and he's got a presentation that they say they set him down, and he's across the table from the president, and behind him is a big screen projection TV, and he's got the chief of Mossad there, and they give him this fairy story. And then as they go back and they ask the U.S. intelligence to take a look at it, the director of the CIA comes in, he goes, one word, farcical. And yet Trump does this because he is a Zionist. And I said, my take on it, what do you think about this, Gerald? I said, what I think is interesting about this is that the details that they have there either are completely fabricated, which I kind of don't think they are, or you've got a very high source, because you look at the people that were at that meeting, it's his cabinet. And so what does that tell us? Does that tell us that there's some people who are in that story who want to distance themselves from what Trump is doing because they see how destructive it is to this country and they know it's going to end their career in the future? I mean, is that why this was leaked?
I don't know the why.
What do you think?
But I agree with what you're saying. I believe a lot of what they wrote here. And again, here, from Netanyahu's hard sell to inner circle talks that greenlit the attack. And here's the people, and this is what they call the situation room. How about an ignorant, stupid room? Situation room. Here, Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff. Oh, yeah, she's brilliant in military knowledge. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a little jerk of nothing that Trump used to make fun of, the little Marco, a little clown boy, a little stupid piece of scum. Oh, and Pete Hegseth. Hogsett, yeah. The clown boy from Fox, the arrogant guy that uses God's name in vain, that little arrogant boy.
Yeah, that's right, he does.
General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and John Ratcliffe, the CIA director. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Jared Kushner,
Yeah.
the president's son-in-law.
Yeah.
And Steve Witkoff Jerkoff. All right. What are you calling this a situation room?
We're in a situation, aren't we?
We got it. And then you mentioned this too, when you said, did they do this because?
Mhm.
Because there's one thing after another saying how they weren't for this, but they wouldn't come out against the president.
That's right. That's right.
One of these gutless little clowns after another. Well, we don't know, but whatever the president thinks is okay.
Yeah, that's right. Grow a spine. Yeah, you're going to destroy the world economy, kill who knows how many people, including Americans, and you can't say no. This is a group of yes men. And when you go back and look at the 25th Amendment, Gerald, these are the guys who are afraid to say no to a global depression and an unnecessary war. These are the people who would have to be the ones to take Trump out of office. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Here we go. In the Situation Room on February 11th, Mr. Netanyahu also made a hard-selling suggestion that Iran was ripe for regime change and expressing the belief that a joint U.S.-Israeli mission could finally bring an end to the Islamic Republic.
Yeah. Well, I think the
Mr.
countries that are ripe for regime change is the U.S. and Israel.
Yep. And as you were saying, among those featured was Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah. Now a Washington-based dissident who had tried to position himself a secular leader who could shepherd Iran toward a post-theocratic government. Mr. Netanyahu and his team outlined conditions they portrayed as pointing to near certain victory. Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks. The regime would be so weak that it could not choke off the Strait of Hormuz, and the likelihood that Iran would land blows against U.S. interests in neighboring countries was assessed as minimal.
Yeah, that's the Goldilocks scenario. Right? Everything's going to go just right.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's when they start talking about this Pahlavi guy. If the little prince shows up, if he shows his face in Iran, he would last about 2 minutes before these people would execute him. After what the Shah did to so many Iranians, they haven't forgotten that, and he wouldn't last a minute.
So you're asking before about the economic consequences. It's global. And this is really wiping out the Middle East. Again, we only read the data, and we haven't seen it, the recent numbers in 3 weeks. But 3 weeks ago, they were losing over $600 million a day in tourism in the Middle East. $600 million. That was 3 weeks ago. Dubai property sales plunge over 30%.
Wow.
They overbuilt all these places. That little clown boy that's the prince over there. And again, I'm tired of this prince and king crap. I'm not 6 years old. What do you want to make up this king prince? A royalty. Oh, yeah, I'm just a little guinea from the Bronx, all right?
It's a fairy tale.
You with this royalty crap. I don't want to hear it.
It's a fairy tale, Gerald. You don't want to buy into the fairy tale?
Again, if they were Italian, they'd call them a mafia.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Anyway, this little prince clown, they were trying to build up tourism. Saudi Arabia's economy was going down. You look at Brent crude sales before this was going on. They were down like $58 a barrel. There was more supply than demand, and they weren't cutting back on supply because they needed the money.
Yeah.
And now the prices have spiked up. When we went on the air, it was about $96 a barrel for Brent crude. And that's the other thing. Trump keeps lying and lying and lying so that he keeps, again, what's in your Trends Journal, only the facts are there. He keeps lying and lying and lying to pump up the equity markets and to bring down energy prices, crude prices.
And they're more than they're anxious to hear a happy story, and so when they get a happy story, it jumps all of a sudden, and yet it takes about a day for them to come back and say, "Well, that ain't going to happen." But here's something that I thought was kind of interesting, and of course, when we look at the bigger picture and the goals of people like Netanyahu and the Zionists, they've actually got patches on their uniforms that depict Greater Israel, what they want to do in terms of what they think is what they say is their mandate, their biblical mandate from the people who deny everything else in the Bible except what they think is their land. And they're willing to kill for the land. And they want to take everything from the Nile up to the Euphrates. And so when I look at this, it seems to me like their goal, I see what you think about this, seems to me like their goal is to destroy all of the other countries, to do a Gaza-cide, just like they did with Gaza, destroy Lebanon, destroy all these Gulf states, and then occupy them and take their oil. Now, don't you think that's the long term?
100% correct.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Again, read that article. That again, and as you did, that's all it's about.
That's right. And so from that standpoint,
and again, a made-up country.
Yeah.
They had no right to this thing.
That's right.
Again, let's not forget, it's only in your Trends Journal. We wrote about it back we called it Crusades 2000, about the Balfour Declaration in 1917. His Majesty's government declares, His Majesty's government, a murderous clown from the UK and throwing FAU in a scene at UK? Oh, that guy? His Majesty's government declares that the land in Palestine will be settled by the Jewish people, and we will use our best endeavors to achieve this objective. Oh, the letter that went to the Rothschilds?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, the Epsteins, the Rothschilds, Greenberg, Iceberg, what's the difference?
Yeah. So, iceberg, let us take the whole area that's there. Let's talk a little bit about this toll thing. Again, it's already closed up again, I believe. But if they were to go back to if they collect these tolls, and if they could streamline it so they could get the same kind of traffic that they did before, in terms of $2 million per ship, I worked out that would be equivalent to, over a course of a year, at the traffic levels that they had before the war happened, they would be making about $91 billion a year, which is about 25% of their GDP. I mean, that'd be a big boost. If we looked at the equivalent to the United States, the U.S. has got, even though Iran only gets a $500 billion, or 400 billion, let's say, their GDP is 400 billion. Our GDP is 32 trillion. If you increased our GDP by 25%, that'd be equivalent to us having having a windfall of about $8 trillion. So this is something that would make a huge difference to the Iranian regime. Not only has the war solidified the civilian bombing of people in Iran, as it always does, it builds support for whoever it is that you're bombing. It doesn't change regimes. It builds their base of support.
You're 1,000%
and this
correct.
amount of money that will be coming in from these tolls, that will be viewed as a huge win as well. What do you think the chances of this happening are?
They're going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. They're winning.
Well, I got to say, when I read that New York Times story and they talked about Jared Kushner being in on that high-level meeting that decides whether or not we're going to have a war, they don't tell anybody in Congress. They don't ask people in Congress. Now Lindsey Graham is saying, you don't need to do that. But if you want peace, you've got to ask us and you've got to get Congress's approval. I mean, he won't even show people the document, although the Pakistanis who mediated this said that Israel not attacking Lebanon was a condition of the ceasefire. Trump at first said that, and then he changed his tune because he always lies.
Always lies.
Yeah, just amazing. But when I saw that Jared Kushner was there. Again, Netanyahu used to come to the United States, and he would stay at the Kushner house.
That's
and
right.
he would actually sleep in Jared's bed. Presumably not while Jared was there. I don't know. Who knows what's going on? Who knows what's going on with these people? But these are the people who decide that they're going to send us to war. So don't say that Israel didn't push us into a war. The handwriting is all
the
over
ones
this.
that again, it's genocide, Joe. I used to make fun of that arrogant little boy, Anthony Blinken.
Mm-hmm.
I come to Israel as a Jew, he said.
Mm-hmm.
How about coming as a Secretary of State? What the hell do I care what you believe in?
Yeah.
I got to believe in your religion? How about coming as an American?
Mike Huckabee goes there. He's an ambassador for Israel to us. And he even on Easter, he doesn't talk about Christ or the resurrection. He talks about Judaism, wishes them a happy Passover, completely ignores Christ. It's just amazing to see these. And of course, he was the one, Tucker was aware of the greater Israel thing and kind of leads him into it. And he goes, yeah, sure, take it all. Yeah, we support that. Yeah.
Yep, I saw that. This is from the New York Times. Israel strikes hits a Christian town in Lebanon. All right?
Mm-hmm.
How Israel is taking control of much of southern Lebanon, one after another.
Well, let's talk about it from a standpoint of, Mr. and Mrs. America. What do we, as a people who have no say-so in this war, what do we do to prepare for this? Of course, we're going to see massive inflation. We're going to see probably, definitely a global recession, most likely a global depression. You've been saying this for over a decade because of what the Federal Reserve was doing. This just adds, stokes it up even more. So when we see a depression, what can people do to prepare for this?
As I say, GC's 3Gs, guns, gold, and a getaway plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gold prices should be way higher. What's happening is that a lot of countries, because the economies are going down so badly, are selling gold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was just reported in the Financial Times that Turkey sold like $20 billion worth of gold.
Yeah. They got to cover themselves, Well, you had France did a major amount, and they were portraying it as the fact that Germany's been fighting to repatriate their gold out of the New York Fed vaults, supposedly where it is, and haven't been successful. What France did was they said, all right, we're going to sell our gold, and because they couldn't get the Federal Reserve to produce it because the Federal Reserve may not have it. And so they got the cash in terms of fiat dollars, and then they bought gold in Europe. And everybody was saying, look at this, they even made a profit, because when they sell this massive amount of gold, that depresses the market in the United States. And then as the price of gold is depressed because of their sale, they're able to buy it in Europe. They made a $15 billion profit by depressing the price of gold by doing a massive sell-off and then buying it over there. And they didn't have to pay for the expense of insurance and armed guards to transport all of that stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, we're bullish on gold and we're bullish on silver, gold more than silver. And again, it's a safe haven asset. And this thing is going to keep going down. Look at, again, now they're warning that they by the way, they're saying gold prices are also going down because of they're not going to lower interest rates because of inflation. What's the interest rate now? 3.5, 3.75, right? Let's go back to 1978, 79 when I started buying gold. What was the interest rate back then?
I don't know. What was it?
About 12%.
Yeah.
All right? Has nothing to do with interest rates.
Yep.
They're going down. The other reason it's going down because when the gold spiked to like $5,600 an ounce, there was a lot of speculation. A lot of people were playing the ETFs. Now with the equity markets going down, they need the money to cover their losses. That's what pulled it down too.
Yeah.
So to me, this is a temporary down, but still, as we're on the air, it's over $4,700 an ounce. So let's go back to when we called it a golden year for gold back in January 2nd, 2024. What was it back then? $2,041. All right? So two and a half years ago, it was what? $2,041, and now it's $4,770 something dollars.
Yeah.
All right. That's showing
Yeah.
you how bad it is. And when you look at, again, you're talking about the price of gasoline. When I was a kid, 25 cents a gallon.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
A
yeah.
slice-
I remember that.
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember that as well.
A slice of pizza and a soda, 25 cents, 15 cents for the pizza. All right. The moronic crime syndicate that imbeciles call a government has destroyed our nation.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
The facts. You're talking about where it's going. Oh, look at mortgage rates now, huh? Oh, they're going way up. Let's go back just a couple of years ago before the COVID war. What was the average age of the first-time home buyers in America? 28 years old. What is it today? 40.
Wow. Wow.
The top 1% of America are responsible for about 50% of all the spending in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're talking about interest rates and how that didn't stop gold back in the 1970s. And you're absolutely right. Our first home that we got, 13% fixed rate. And, again, we were stupid and young and we didn't, we did that. But at that time, even with that home mortgage rates being up to 13%, gold was soaring. And so the reality is that when you look at the budget deficit, Trump is all freaked out about trade deficits. And he already, before he started this global war that he's doing now, this war on energy, he already started a war on trade because he's so freaked out about the trade deficit. But he doesn't care at all about the budget deficit.
He only
care
cares
at all.
about himself.
Yeah,
that's all
that's
he
right.
cares about.
Well, he
And you
doesn't
said-
want to have the big interest rates, interest expenses, which is a big bottom line expense now. It's becoming huge for the federal government. That's one of the reasons that they would like to lower the interest rates and why I think Trump is going to push the Federal Reserve to do that. As you pointed out, he wants lower interest rates because it helps to make him look good in terms of being able to cover the interest on it. And he will lean on the Federal Reserve to do that. As you pointed out, he always gets what he wants when he does that.
Again, look at the lies. His State of the Union on the cover of the magazine this week. His April Fool's April 1st speech. We call it the April Fool's Day speech. He said the economy's never been stronger than under the strongest economy in the history of America.
Yeah, everything he says is a lie.
2.1%, I think, last year was the GDP growth. Mm-hmm. He gets away with these lies. And by the way, you said when you were young, and you didn't know, you bought the thing at 13%, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was when I was a kid, I'm about 17 years old. My father, may rest in peace, eating dinner. He looks at me. He said, son, they say that youth is wasted on the young. He took a couple more bites. He pointed his finger at me. He said, they were talking about you. Anyway, they keep coming out with this crap. This is this Daily Beast. Top doctor sounds alarm on Trump 79 over dementia. Next one. Trump 79 grips on Melania for dear life down White House steps. They keep spewing this crap out that at 79 years old, you're dumb. Screw you. I'm the same age as Trump, and I'm a lot smarter than I was because I keep learning every day. So I get this crap from people saying, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, they said that back in when America was formed, that something you couldn't be over 65 years old. Hey, jerk, go back to see what the average age was back in the 1776. Mm-hmm. People were dying about 50 years old was the average death age.
Yeah. And take a look at Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, they're selling this crap that Trump, because he's 79, is stupid. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things when I saw this New York Times thing, I said, what they're doing is they're trying to, whoever's leaked this information to the New York Times, they're trying to set up the scenario to excuse Trump yet again. We saw the same thing happening back with COVID, right? He said, well, I had two very smart people who came to me and told me that we had this pandemic when there was no pandemic. We had Fauci and Birx who go in with a bunch of fake information from the Imperial College of London, right? And then you have all these people who are Trump fans and say, oh, he was deceived by Fauci and Birx. Well, we all knew that Fauci was a crook and a criminal. We all knew that he had pushed for everything that the pharmaceutical industry wanted. He had pushed the immunity for vaccine damage thing through with Reagan and so forth. So we knew he was a scumbag, just like we know that Netanyahu is a scumbag. But what I think they're going to do is they're going to push this off and say, yeah, it was Netanyahu and Mossad. It wasn't Trump. He was okay. He was just deceived. Even though he's a genius, he was just deceived into doing this, just like Fauci and Birx deceived him. I've heard that so many times.
And the thing about Trump, too, there's one of these quotes, a whole civilization will die tonight.
Yeah.
Never to be brought back again. Remember he said that?
Yeah.
Remember he said about his April Fool's speech, we're going to bomb him into the Stone Ages?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say if Hitler said these things back in World War II, they would be teaching us this in our history books when we went to school after World War II. Do you know what Hitler said? He said, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Oh, my God. But Trump could get away with this?
That's the textbook definition of genocide. And what he's been doing and what the U.S. has been doing is the textbook definition of terrorism. And I played a clip from somebody who used to work for the CIA, and she went through the definition of terrorism, and she talked about how these Tomahawk missiles operate and the fact that they had to have known that they were going into a school when they killed those children, 160 young girls on day one. She said, that is terrorism. That is intimidation. And that's what he's doing all the time.
U.S.-Israeli strikes hit over 115,000 civilian structures in Iran, according to Red Crescent. Could you imagine? Could you imagine your house being bombed, your whole neighborhood? I'm up here in Kingston, New York. What do we got? 25,000 people here, and you're talking about countries with millions of people. And again, in Lebanon, over 1 million people have been forced out of their homes by Israel. Over 1 million people.
Yeah.
And where's the outrage?
Yeah.
And where are all these religions, as I keep saying? Oh, the Pope said. Oh, the Pope said. How about empty words coming out of nobody's mouth? How about taking some action?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I got to get dressed up in my costume. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy, these grifters that hang around Trump as his spiritual advisors, because that's really what his spirit is all about, the love of money, the root of all evil. He's got people like Paula White, and he's got Robert Jeffress. And, of course, Robert Jeffress, I've been on to this guy for a long time. He was going around with Curtis Chang back during the pandemic. Curtis Chang was given a lot of money by the Trump administration to propagandize people through the spiritual leaders that they trusted, the pastors or whatever. And he had a program for that. And they basically war gamed it out using the psychological tactics that had been tested in a double-blind study by Yale University in the summer of 2020. And I talked about that, and you could see people like Robert Jeffress putting this stuff out, and Curtis Chang putting this stuff out verbatim, saying, well, you owe it to your neighbors. This is loving your neighbor to get a vaccine, even though you're not sick and you don't need it, and so forth. And this guy was out there covering for Trump, as you had a lot of Baptists, like I was joking the other day. I said, the Baptists don't mind if you drop bombs on other people. They just don't want you using the F-bomb. So he comes back and he goes, well, it's salty language. All presidents use salty language. So he's cheering the genocide of this. That doesn't faze him at all. At the same time, we've got some people who come out and say, well, I always voted for Republicans because I was pro-life. You can't be pro-life and call for genocide at the same time. What's the matter with you people? You got
perfectly said.
You got all these people out there talking about euthanasia and abortion, and yet they cheer genocide. I can't get my head around that.
I know. I say the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want them to kill a baby before they're born, but you can kill anybody you want after they're born.
That's right. Yeah, that's the way they go.
Again, just to make it clear, this is the way I feel about all politicians. You get this T-shirt at Trends Journal.
That's right. Well, people can go to trendsjournal.com. You can save 10% off with the code NIGHT. It's always great talking to you, Gerald. I wish we had good news, but there's just a few things that people can do to prepare, but there's really not much that they can do. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, folks, have a... The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.